I didn't notice it at first, dot. It was just a walk. There's a trail not far from where I live. People use it during the day. It's simple, straight, easy to follow. I've walked it before. You go in, and after some time, you reach the end dot, or at least you're supposed to. That day, I didn't think about it. The weather was normal, soft light through the trees, no wind. Quiet, but not unusual. I started walking. The path felt familiar, same trees, same ground, same direction. I wasn't in a hurry, just moving forward. After a while, I realized something small. I hadn't reached the turn yet. There's a point where the path curves slightly. I knew where it should be, but it wasn't there. I slowed down, looked ahead. The path continued, straight, that was strange, but not impossible. Maybe I misremembered, so I kept walking. A few more minutes passed. Then I noticed something else, the trees. They looked the same, not similar. The same. I stopped, turned around. The path behind me looked exactly like the one ahead. No difference, no mark, just continuation. I stood there for a moment, then turned forward again and kept walking. Not because I was sure, but because stopping didn't make sense. After some time, I checked my phone. The time had passed normally. Nothing unusual, that helped, It meant this wasn't something extreme, just a longer path than I expected, So I continued, step by step. The ground didn't change. The trees didn't change. Everything stayed consistent, too consistent, After a while, I started to notice the silence. Not the absence of sound. The lack of variation, no birds, no distant movement, just stillness. I stopped again, listened, nothing changed. The silence didn't shift, it stayed the same, like it wasn't reacting to me. I took a slow breath, then spoke. How far does this go? No answer, of course, but the question didn't feel pointless, it felt placed, like it belonged there. I started walking again, this time more carefully, paying attention to details, the ground, the trees, the spacing. Everything matched, too precisely. Then I noticed something, a small branch on the path, broken. I stepped over it, kept walking. A few minutes later, I saw it again. The same branch, same position, same shape. I stopped immediately, looked at it, then behind me. Nothing, just the path. I stepped back, looked again. Still there, the same. I didn't touch it. I just stood there, trying to understand something simple. I hadn't turned. I hadn't gone in a circle. The path didn't curve. And yet I was back at the same point. I looked ahead. The path continued, unchanged. I exhaled slowly, then made a decision. I would test it. I took a small stone from the ground, placed it in the center of the path, then walked forward, slowly, counting. Steps, 10, 20, 30, I stopped. Turned around. The stone was still there. Behind me, normal, I nodded, that made sense. Then I turned forward again and kept walking. After some time, I saw it again. The same stone, in front of me, exactly where I had placed it. I didn't move, because now it wasn't just strange. It was clear. The path didn't loop, it repeated, not physically, but structurally. I stepped closer to the stone, looked at it, then quietly said, "You don't end." The silence remained, unchanged. Now, it felt different, not empty, defined. I stood there for a long moment, then stepped over the stone again, and continued walking, because now I understood something important, the path wasn't leading somewhere, it was continuing, without an end, and I was already inside it. I didn't turn back. Not because I couldn't, but because it didn't feel like there was a back anymore. The path behind me looked the same as the one ahead. Not similar, identical, So instead of choosing a direction, I chose to keep moving dot step by step. The stone stayed behind me. At least, that's what I told myself, because I didn't look again. Not yet. I focused on something else. The rhythm, walking, step, step, at. First, it felt normal, but after a while I noticed something. The steps didn't echo, not even slightly. The ground absorbed everything, no variation, no difference in sound, just contact, then silence. I slowed down, listened carefully. Still nothing. Even when I stopped, the silence didn't change, it didn't react, like it wasn't connected to me. I took another step, and that's when I realized something else. The air, it didn't move. Not even slightly, no wind, no shift, just still. I looked at the trees. The leaves weren't moving either, not frozen. Just unmoving, like motion wasn't part of this place. I stood there, completely still, and for a moment, everything felt. Pause, then I stepped forward again, and the path continued, unchanged. After some time, I noticed something new, the spacing between the trees, it was too even, not natural, not random. Each tree stood at almost the same distance, like they had been placed, not grown. I walked between them, carefully, and as I passed, I had a strange feeling, like I had already walked through this exact space before. Not similar, the same. I stopped, looked to the side. One of the trees had a small mark, a darker line in the bark, subtle, but noticeable. I memorized it, then kept walking. 10 steps, 20, 30, and then I saw it again. The same tree, same mark, same position. I didn't react immediately. I just stood there, looking, because now I understood something more clearly, It wasn't just the path repeating, it was the space, every segment identical, perfectly aligned. I stepped closer to the tree, touched the bark, it felt real, solid, but there was something else. A slight delay, not in the touch, in the feeling of it, like the contact registered a fraction later. I pulled my hand back, looked at it, then back at the tree. Nothing had changed, and yet it didn't feel immediate anymore. I took a step back, then forward again. Everything aligned, stable, but only when I moved. I stopped and waited, slowly. The space around me shifted, not visually, but in distance. The trees felt slightly closer, the path narrower. Then I stepped forward, and everything returned, normal. I nodded, so that was another rule. Movement kept the path stable. Stillness allowed it to change. I looked ahead. The path continued, unbroken, unending. Then something new appeared, far ahead. A shape, at first I thought it was another tree, but at WSN single quotes T, it stood differently, more defined, more structured. I walked toward it, slowly, carefully. The shape became clearer. A sign, a simple wooden sign, standing beside the path. I stopped in front of it. There was writing on it, faint, but readable. I leaned closer, it said, "Keep walking." I stared at it for a long moment, then looked behind me, nothing, just the path. I looked forward again. The sign remained, unchanged, not moving, not shifting. I exhaled slowly, so the path wasn't random. It had structure, it had rules, and now it had direction. Not a destination, but an instruction. I stepped past the sign and continued walking, because now I understood something simple. The path didn't end, but it did continue, and the only way forward was to follow it. I didn't question the sign, not because I fully understood it, but because it matched everything else. The path didn't stop, so neither should I. Keep walking. Simple, clear. I moved forward, step by step. The sign disappeared behind me, or maybe it just stopped being relevant. The path remained the same, unchanged, consistent, and yet something felt different, not the space, the intention. Before I was trying to understand it. Now I was following it. That changed something, subtle, but clear. I walked for a while. Time passed normally. At least that's what my phone said. But it didn't feel the same, It felt stretched, not slower, just extended, like each moment lasted slightly longer than it should. I kept walking, and then I noticed something ahead, another shape. Not a tree. Not a sign. Something lower, closer to the ground. I approached it, slowly, carefully, as it became clearer. I realized what it was. A bench, simple, wooden, placed just beside the path. I stopped, looked at it, There was no reason for it to be there, no clearing. No view, just the path and the bench. I stepped closer, It looked unused, not old, not new, just present, like everything else here. I walked around it, looked at it from different angles. Nothing changed, no. Shift, stable, that mattered, because most things here changed when I stopped. But this DIDN, single quotes I sat down. The moment I did, the space responded, not immediately. But after a few seconds, the silence deepened again. More focused, more precise. I stayed still, hands resting on my knees, breathing slowly, and then I noticed it. The path ahead looked slightly different, not in shape, in distance, it felt further, longer, I stood up, and instantly it returned to normal, closer, aligned, I looked back at the bench, then forward again, So that was another rule. Stopping changed the perception. Moving restored it. I nodded slowly, then stepped forward, leaving the bench behind, and for the first time, I didn't look back, because now I trusted something. Not the path itself, but the pattern. After some time, I saw something else, another sign. This one looked different, placed slightly off the path. I walked toward it, stopped in front of it. The writing was clearer this time, stronger, I leaned closer, it said, "Don't stop for too long." I stared at it, then slowly nodded, that made sense. I had already felt it. The longer I stayed still, the more the space changed. Not dangerously, but noticeably. I stepped back onto the path and continued walking. This time, with more awareness, not just observing, adjusting. I walked steadily, not too fast, not stopping completely, just moving, balanced, and as I did, everything stayed stable. The trees, the ground, the distance, all aligned, for a while. Nothing changed, and that felt right, until something did, far ahead. I saw something new. Not a sign, not a bench, not a tree. Something taller, more defined. I slowed down slightly, but didn't stop. Kept moving. The shape became clearer, vertical, straight, I stepped closer, and then I understood what it was. A gate, simple, wooden, standing across the path, closed. I stopped, just for a second, then took one step forward again. The gate didn't move. Didn't change, it just stood there, blocking the path. For the first time, there was something that interrupted the continuation, I stood in front of it, looking, and quietly said, "This wasn't here before." The silence remained, but it felt focused again, like something was waiting, not for me to stop, but for me to understand. I placed my hand on the gate, It felt real, solid, unmoving. I didn't try to force it. Instead, I stepped slightly to the side. The path continued beyond it, visible, unchanged. Just blocked. I exhaled slowly, then looked at the gate again, For the first time, I realized something. The path didn't end, but it could. Pause, and this was the first pause. I stood there, hand resting lightly on the wood, and quietly said, "What happens if I go through?" No answer, But the question didn't feel empty. It felt expected. I didn't open the gate. Not yet. Because now I understood something clearly. This wasn't about reaching the end. It was about continuing correctly. And the gate was the next step, not the end. Just another part of the path. I stepped back, looked at it one last time. Then said quietly, "Next time." The path remained still, but now it didn't feel endless. It felt structured. I didn't leave the path. Not really. Even when I turned back, it didn't feel like I was going anywhere else. The gate stayed behind me. At least, that's how it felt. Because when I looked ahead, the path was still there. Unbroken. Unchanged. As if the gate had never interrupted it. I kept walking. Not fast. Not slow. Just steady. Because now I understood something important. Speed didn't matter. Direction didn't matter. Only movement. Consistent movement. The trees passed beside me. Same spacing. Same alignment. Nothing new appeared. For a while, everything remained stable. And that felt different from before. Before I was reacting. Now I was following. That changed the space. Subtly. But clearly. After some time, I noticed something. The light. It hadn't changed. Not brighter. Not darker. Exactly the same. I checked my phone. Time had passed. Minutes. Maybe more. But the light remained fixed. I looked up at the trees. The shadows didn't move. Not even slightly. Stopped. Just for a moment. And immediately the path responded. The space tightened. The trees felt closer. The distance ahead stretched again. I stepped forward quickly, and everything returned. Normal. Aligned. I exhaled. So that rule still applied. Don't stop. Not for long. I continued walking, more aware now, adjusting without thinking. Then I noticed something new. A sound. Very faint. Not from ahead. Not from behind. From the side. I slowed down slightly, but didn't stop. Turned my head. There was nothing there. Just trees. Unmoving. The sound came. Again. Soft. Like something brushing against the ground. Then it stopped. Kept walking. Didn't turn again. Because now I understood something else. Not everything on the path needed attention. Some things were just there. After a while, the path changed. Again. Subtly. Not in shape. In surface. The ground became smoother. Less natural. More even. I looked down as I walked. No stones. No branches. Just a continuous surface. I didn't slow down. Didn't question it. Just kept moving. And then I saw it. Ahead. The gate. Again. Same shape. Same position. Standing across the path. I approached it without stopping, without hesitation. And this time, something was different. The gate was slightly open. Not fully. Just enough. I kept walking. Didn't pause. Didn't reach for it. I simply moved forward. As I did, the opening widened. Gradually. In response. I stepped through without stopping, without looking back. And the moment I passed it, everything changed. Not suddenly, but clearly. The path beyond was different. The trees were still there, but further apart. The space wider. The air lighter. I slowed down. Just slightly, but didn't stop, because I knew stopping would change it. I looked around as I walked. Everything felt more open. Less repetitive, less constrained. And for the first time, I felt something new. Not confusion. Not curiosity. Understanding. This wasn't the same section. This was further. I turned my head slightly, just enough to glance behind me. The gate was gone. Not closed. Not distant. Gone. Only the path remained. I nodded slowly. That made sense. The path didn't keep. When you passed. It continued. I walked forward, and after some time, I noticed something else. Far ahead. A change in the path. Not an object, not a structure. Something else. The path. Narrowed dot gradually dot almost unnoticeable at first, but clear the closer I got. I kept moving dot step by step. The space around me tightening again, more focused, more precise dot until finally I reached it. The narrow point. The path reduced to a single line, barely wider than my steps. I stopped dot just for a second, then immediately stepped forward again, because now I understood. This wasn't an obstacle dot, this was alignment. I walked carefully, balanced. Focused dot each step placed exactly dot, and as I moved, the space held dot stable dot precise dot, then dash very quietly I said, "This is different." The silence remained, but it felt clearer dot my confirmation dot. I continued forward, because now the path wasn't just endless. It was guiding, and I was finally moving with it. I didn't stop on the narrow path dot, not this time dot. Each step felt exact dot placed dot, like the path wasn't just under me. It was guiding me. I moved forward carefully dot, balanced dot, aware of every step. And as I did, the space remained stable dot, no shifts dot, no changes. Just alignment dot. After some time, the path widened again dot, gradually dot. The trees spread further apart dot. The air felt lighter dot, open dot. I slowed down, but didn't stop dot, because now I understood the difference. Slowing was fine. Stopping was not. I kept moving, and for the first time I wasn't trying to reach anything. I wasn't looking ahead for something new. I was just walking dot, and that changed everything dot. The path didn't feel endless anymore. It felt continuous dot, not something to escape dot, something to be inside. I walked for a while like that dot, no signs dot, no objects dot, no interruptions dot, just the path dot and movement dot. Then dash very slowly. I noticed something. The silence had changed dot, not broken dot, adjusted. There was something else now dot, very faint. A second layer. Not a sound, more like presence. I didn't turn, didn't stop. I just kept walking and let it exist dot, step dot, then dash. I understood dot. It wasn't following me dot. It wasn't beside me dot. It was part of the path. Always had been. I exhaled slowly. You were always here. The silence remained, but now it felt complete, like nothing was missing. I continued walking, and after some time, something changed again. Ahead, the path didn't narrow, didn't curve, didn't repeat dot. It simply ended dot. I stopped, just at the edge. The ground beyond wasn't a path, just forest dot, normal, unstructured dot. I stood there dot, looking dot, not confused dot, not surprised, just aware dot, because now I understood something clearly. The path didn't end because it was over. It ended because I had followed it correctly. I stepped forward dot, off the path, onto the forest ground dot. The moment I did, everything changed dot. The silence lifted dot, the trees moved slightly, the air shifted, sound returned dot, normal dot. I turned around. The path was gone. No line dot, no clearing dot, just forest dot, as if it had never been there. I stood still for a moment, then nodded dot, because now it made sense dot. The path wasn't a place dot, it was a condition, a way of moving dot, and once you understood it, you didn't need it anymore. I looked ahead. The forest stretched normally dot, no repetition dot, no pattern dot, just space. I started walking again dot, not following anything now dot, just moving. And after a few steps, I noticed something. Not on the ground dot, not in front of me dot, but in the way I moved. Each step felt the same as before dot, balanced dot, aware dot, aligned dot. I stopped, just for a second, and nothing changed dot, no shift dot, no distortion dot, just stillness dot, normal dot. I exhaled dot, because now I understood the final part. The path didn't trap you dot, it taught you. And once you learned, you carried it with you. I Looked around one last time. The forest was quiet, but not empty. Complete. I turned and walked forward. Not searching. Not following. Just continuing. And for the first time, the path wasn't in front of me. It was part of how I moved.